years is increasing. So before I pass the word for Eduardo and Jacqueline and the others, I want to mention that this movement of real backs, we should think about diaspora and this number standing more to Brazil, but we have to consider other realities. Well, I'm also considering some hypotheses. It's not possible to say for sure about it, but we should consider that Brazil, from the historical point of view, we have been discovered in 1500, but we had other countries before, and we have been in other countries doing we don't know what before that. So we have this pensata here. Those being born in different countries or in terms of diaspora, this shows somehow our past inter-present. We can say that Brazil is a kind of neutral country, so we have the chance or the opportunity to restart in a better way, in a better atmosphere. And I think that because of this historical condition, and of course we have some other hypotheses, for example, about the language, the Portuguese language. Valdo always mentioned about the way we can go deeper into this knowledge. I think it makes sense. And I see it as a contextual moment. So today we have another context. We have today many books being translated. We see conscientiology reaching other countries, other areas. So I think this was a very clever decision to start conscientiology here. And now we see the effects from this to assist a high number of people. So you concentrate a certain number of consciousness in one place, and then you can spread it to other places. Well, let's hear Jacqueline. I think that all people said before makes sense. And as Mark said, the facts show the number of people today seems to be higher in Brazil. And Valdo was a key person, and many people being reborn here to make conscientiology in Brazil. But I think we don't know exactly how many intermissivists we have today. We don't have this systematization of conscientiology outside of Brazil. Of course, conscientiology is in Brazil for a longer time, and the duration of conscientiology here in Brazil is much longer than in other countries. So in many countries, we don't have representatives or people studying conscientiology. Yes, well, I think I will repeat some ideas, but let's go ahead. So I agree with you. The figures today show that most or the majority of intermissivists have been reborn in Brazil. We see this, but actually we don't have all the elements to see if this is really true. So in terms of population, for example, in Asia, we have more than 4 billion people. And in America, other billions, and Africa, 700 billions. And when we see the number of people in Asia, we have more than 4 group max proexis. It's very important to give this opportunity to other intermissivists to come and to become a volunteer and to do their work. And I want to say that apart from Brazil, we have other key countries. For example, what is the second country starting conscientiology? This was Argentina. Well, for me, Argentina and Portugal are basic countries, key countries. So we have, nowadays, we have Portugal as city. We have ICCC and also reappreendência in USA. And in 92, we started the process of internationalization, going to Buenos Aires. And the following year, 93, we had the foundation of ICCC in Buenos Aires. And so we have nearly 30 years from this first event. So I think Argentina, USA, Portugal are key countries. And also it calls my attention Germany with a very strong group, and Australia. We have many colleagues, many volunteers there. And Spain also, I'm Spanish. And I think we had also a very strong group there. Well, center and south of Spain, we always have
an opportunity. It is to enter in the Holocene. It's not necessarily to go there, what Max is saying. It's not to go there and establish the Holocene. It's actually the intermissivists to come and to strengthen the Holocene and to sustain this. But one way to sustain this work, it's the volunteer work. The voluntary connect you with the intraphysical team and the astrophysical team. And this, I think, is the key for the person to start to work doing this. And I think pandemic, it's the ideal time. It's opened the door for everyone. It blocked the boundaries that people had, and people had the opportunity to be exposed to many courses, includes in OIC, for instance. OIC never had attention online because the part is safe. And because of now the consolidation of consciential therapy, now there is the opportunity in this scenery, the opportunity of having consciential therapy online. And so when we start to see and look from outside, you start to adapt and see this situation started to happen. And the international people start to be benefit. And what I say it is this interconnection between the volunteers. Physical, it doesn't have so much of a problem. No, if you start to work, you are outside and you do your work in other countries, and online, you are interconnected and people can do their work. I think it's to connect in things that the person has some linkage or some speciality. I think it's important. I think what Virginia said, it's important. The volunteering, it is what gathering people, what's uniting people, because the person is working together. If the person is only as a spectator, it makes a little bit more difficult. Let's go, pass to Sergio. Okay, so just to complement this, the answer to complement this answer to our friend, I think the practical volunteering, having this posture, the person is assisting and send this interaction. So this person can pass along this information. So, and this will help us to consolidate this information, as Marx said, is to strengthen the Holocene. In the cognopolis, the connection. And from there, the person started to create these groups and like embassies in other countries. It is more or less what we are going to say. Okay. Okay, Eduardo. So I would like to get an attention in the movement of marketing of conscientiology, which is, was for many times was a strength, was now very strong. I remember when I started to study conscientiology, it was conscientiology for me. It was, I thought back that time, was marketing. It was having posters, radios. So we used to do lots of TV, radios, posters, publications. There were lots of marketing to advertise conscientiology, projectiology. We had a lot. This was outdoor for everywhere, you know? But with the pass of the time, what's happened? When we migrate to Iguaçu Foz, this changed. There were turning points. So our colleague Doria asked, but I think it's for the international as well. I think it does exist the moment of broadcast the information. It's the moment for the intrusion, it rescue. And this is conscientiology as well, with a strong strength, no, of the work. So it's you take ideas and you publicize those informations in the environment, as we did for many years. I think in order to fortify and strengthen the Holocene in a country, I think one of the main actions, very important, is the person start to advertise conscientiology. And obviously, every country is different from Brazil. Even this is quite different. Brazil, you can advertise, and if you want to put posters in bus, you still can. But we used to do that in Rio. And there are so many manners, forms that you can do overseas. Maybe newsletter, people used to do that. USA, they use a lot. They talk about the platform, internet platform. You create a blog, you start to gather information, a database, and you update this information for people over the internet. And now you have lives, you have conferences, you have courses all online. Ourselves, but conscientiology, it's in and out. So you needed to balance, to know how to balance this and invest in this process, the internal process of research. Jacqueline, I'll pass for Jacqueline as well, and then Diane for the questions. I think I'm gonna talk something Eduardo said. I think the era, digital era, no? If we can say that, no? The digital age. So with the pandemic, we are using more the internet than ever before. I think it's to use those resources, those social media, and we are using more efficacy in other countries. I think we can get better into that. We are getting there still. We still can do better than we are doing now. Everything that Eduardo said, I think it's, I agree what he said, and I think all this will help, and help the culture as well, where when we advertise conscientiology and understand the culture where you are advertising conscientiology, it's very important. And the way you do in different cultures will be different. So this knowledge, it's important. We do need people that are there that has this understanding in various countries and cultures. I think that's it. Okay, I will pass to Diana, and then Virginia entered and talked as well. Okay, I'm gonna pass one question, but we talked about the data at the beginning of the debate, and it's important we stress one that even though with pandemic, the team of translator hasn't worked like they are working. These people has been working more than ever before. And so even if we want or not, this is helping us with the internationalization. And this is a fact. It's a concrete fact. And you see, for such a long time that we have the project of translation, but now the online gave the opportunity for this to materialize. And this is a positive side. And if we think even the transmissions in other countries, you see the number of participants, it's less if we do when we give in Portuguese. But even though we do not do, we just insist. And see, there is a movement in this sense very strong in this objective. But let me read a question from Eduardo Doria. So he asks, what would be the difficulty for these expansions of conscientiology to other countries in the dependence in culture so different from ours? Brasilia is expansive, neophiliac. I think the main important question of this question, it is what is the most difficult thing to expand to other countries? This is a question, very deep question, and will depend, but I will ask for people to answer, and will depend where you are. But I just would like to put add some point, which is, in my experience, maybe people will not agree with that, but I do not think there is, sometimes a while ago, there was an idea that if you would go to international, depend on the place where you were, you had to minimize the concept of conscientiology to turn more understandable. And I disagree with this. I saw this. I moved in 3 countries. The person who understands will understand as they are here. Who understands. And so obviously we do need to explain the ideas, and not that we're going to arrive there and to talk about many neologisms as we do not do here, because, but this doesn't mean that you do not talk everything. You escalonate what you are saying. But this is something just I would like just to bring this. I'm not sure if people think in this way. Mabel, I just need to give a message here. I received from the technical team. I had here, the team is saying that the computer of the translation in English it's blocking. So only for the people that are listening the translation in English, but people are working on it and are trying to adjust for you guys for the translation to normalize. So Jacqueline, can you please write in the chat that people let's do the intermediation. I think integration, it is we be in a place with different languages, but we can't do this. No, I think the translation to books from other languages, or what we are trying to do now with the Encyclopedia Sapiens as well. We're going to have the meeting where we can actually to help people from other countries writing in Spanish, and then we translate to the language, or write a verbatim in English. And I think conscientiology, we are open to do that. Everyone that I talk with, people wanted to do this movement, and they have this wish. But how do we do this? We do not have a model, a form to do this. We just need to avoid to make the same mistakes that we had in the past. And from the experience from others, we start to see what we can improve. We had many people from the integrated action when we did the existential balance, and then the week Penta, and many people from overseas, they told us after 10 years of conscientiology, I understood some concepts because I didn't understood before. So they are extremely grateful for this integration. And they want to support, they want to work, they want to contribute. But it's a movement that maybe we can't do that quick, no? So people need to be open to that. It's a movement that from the group, no? Everyone needs to prepare to execute this and doing the activities. And one of the things that Mabel said at the beginning, it's related to the glossary. And we have two, like when we do simultaneous translation, we translate all neologism. When it's proexis, it's proexis. When it's a verbon, it's a verbon. So we respect the neologism and what Mabel said, that people won't have any problem to understand that. But it's like here as well. Some people understand is and others not. So that's it. Eduardo want to talk, and Jacqueline was before him. Say, Jacqueline. Please open your microphone. Okay. So I think it's talking what Diana said before. Even we have a small amount of students now. This is not a reason for us to not keep doing. I agree with this. I think we just creating the basis, the foundations at the beginning of the work. We do need to think about the future, not now. We need to think ahead. It's gonna grow and it's gonna grow, and we'll need this, will expand, and more people will come and to get in contact with these ideas. So it's very important to have this broader view and in a long-term view. And another thing that Mabel talked about, I think it's very important to not dilute the ideas and do not think about people can't understand outside, they can't understand what's conscientiology. I think people, everyone is capable. We all had intensive course, and so we are just in a different culture. But this is it's something that we need to understand, but you need to have conscious to do this. And the way for us to reach the people from different cultures, it's necessary from people from their native. The person needs to live there, understand the culture. When I was in Australia, you see when you talk with your language, with your analogies, and all your jokes, and you know how to access people. So I think this is very important. Obviously, any person that knows language, they can go there and access, but it's depth to access. It's better if you are understand more the culture and the language more deeper, no? And I think this is very important. I agree with you, everything. One thing, it is the foreigner, even if they speak the language, Another thing, it's the native talk, and he looks, he comes idiomatic, he understands the culture, he understands that reality. We can't even compare that. It's incomparable. When you talk a mental soma to mental soma, I agree with you, what you were saying. And this is very serious for people who are internationally as well. It's very important that people understand that the work of the native from other countries assume this work. And because this is very important. I don't know if I cut you. I think that's it. I think I can say for the culture, Australian culture, it's very different from Brazil. I can see it's more egalitarian. It's more egalitarian among people. It's less formal, less bureaucracy in many aspects. So it's these are a cultural aspect that we need to acknowledge. So we have Eduard, and now then I will pass to a question. I would like to bring some points there. People who knows, and who doesn't know. And Virginia said about respect the individuality of that consciousness that arrived to do the bridge and so on. And I remembered the history of conscientiology and how things started to happen. Projectiology came first. We saw the outdoors. Have you had the sensation of being out of your body? Lots of people came with that. And that was a strategy to bring projectiology. And all of us, we arrived through the projectiology. And they saw the 700 experiment, conscientiology, and that was another turning point in conscientiology. So I will bring a question. What is a strategy that is used to a marketing in another country? It's bring projectiology and then conscientiology. Professor Val said that, did that with the astrophysical team, and that was a success. Everything was planned. It was a and he came and said this word, holomaturology, and everyone, what? Holo, and some people couldn't understand what they were saying. And today you talk naturally about this. I do not think that it diminish conscientiology. It's heavy strategy to reach, to arrive in a country, in a culture, and take into account many variables of that place. Otherwise, you're gonna talk there and being alone, and nobody gonna access you. And what Professor Val did, he started to build a critical group about this, and got to the point that he was able to talk about this. And I think something that I question myself, are we ready to arrive in a country and talk about projectiology, conscientiology, or do we go in the same strategy that we used in the past as an intermissivist that did intermissivists that didn't understand? We build up the knowledge of the ideas, and we build ourselves with the debates. And in these countries, they do not have debates locally. So I think the strategical thinking about this is important. It's obviously to avoid the banalization. So I had the experience in terms of the history in conscientiology. We had a problem in a place, and I had to assume, and people just said, here you can't say very strong, no. Now we can say strong, yes, and so people had to, we actually enter into that place, and we had a strategy to access that work. And I think it's very important having strategy and also to understand the culture in order for us to not reach the place and to not being able to talk the same language with people. And just to remember, Professor Wald started projectiology, and we've asked him about this now. Why? And we asked him, why did you start with the projectiology? Because they're obvious. Because you need to look to talk with people of the multidimensionality in the practice. The people need to have that experience, so that the person needs to open their mind and the possibility of other concepts, more advanced concepts. And this makes sense what you were saying. I don't know if Jacqueline wants to do say something. I think it's very quick. I think it's very important what Eduardo talked about, accessing people, how to access people. I think we need to remember how we were accessed. How did we started conscientiology? So sometimes we forget. And I think it's very important having lots of patience as well to start, and how we build up this connection, and how we do this bridge to talk about this subject, at the beginning, with a more accessible language to people. I think we can think about this. I agree. That's it. Okay, let's turn a little bit our focus of our talk. We are talking about internationalization. We are talking about the intermissivists around the world, and I will get more, but I think we will go to Diana now. What would be the roots, seriological roots of intermissivists which are involved with the internationalization, the ones that are working in ICCC, all of us that worked with international, and the ones that are born overseas as well. Could we think about a serological route that's in common between these people that are involved with this? Okay, Virginia. Okay, I think yes. So if we start to look nomadism prosexiogenic, when you go from one country, go to another, and I did my existential program, I thought in that moment was the best thing that I should do for my existential program. Then I started to I never thought about in my life to live in Brazil. Brazil, I've worked internationally with Latino American countries and Africa, but with Brazil, never. I never had contact with people from Brazil. But so I did this movement, and when I arrived here 13 years ago, living here, I started to read and look my roots, my seriological roots, which has to do with nomads culture. The Jewish, as I saw in other lives, in this context, in this culture, includes Jacqueline. She's gonna say this about this subject, and I think the people that, in my case, for instance, I started to remember many other cultures like Jewish, so in different contexts where I start to have recollection that I could see myself as foreigners in other countries, that I had to move from one country to escape from a situation of war. I remember having context associated with monarchy, which was very common, that you move between countries. So you started to see that the consciousness has a certain tendency to dromomania. And this profile, and Professor Valdo talk about this, no? If this profile of nomadism applied in the more homeostatic context, it will allow you to do this internationalization work. It is what you have more natural for you. For instance, when I adapt here in Brazil was easier, no? Despite the difficulties, the adaptation is quicker. Yeah, do you understand the people around you? You've been there before. You have rapport. You have with cultures. In this, helps you to makes easier, no, to do these things. And another thing interesting, translation. I would ever think that I had the relation to translation, and then when I started to ASICS and translation started. And I thought I had a recollection of a profile, a personality that had a relation with translation context, that has interest, relation with you. It's only when you are doing the work that you start to see this remains, no, the relation with your profile, your past. If people are having more this profile of dromania or nomadism, and so take advantage of this. It's a nomadism consciential, no? That's a concept of conscientiality, with the capacity of you commute, you transport, you change to other context, and you return, no? And I think it does exist some advantages.
So now they tell me the English is working again. So I will repeat the question. What are the supposed CEAECological rules for these people involved in the internationalization of conscientiology? So now we have Max. So we have one pensata from Val Vieira linked to this. He says that those resonating in areas with less international links can have less interpersonal ties. So they can be involved in conscientiological teaching and so on. So when we think about this interprison, group karmic interprison, we can understand the problems people have to solve. For example, sailors traveling from one place to another. This will create links that this person has to deal with later on. So what calls my attention in conscientiology is that there are many people having this aspect inside of them. For example, we see people always saying, well, we have to translate this course, we have to offer it in English. And the person always wants to participate in activities linked to the internationalization. For example, people link it to the German language. Every time we think about something in German, this person is very motivated to do this. So this is very interesting with some colleagues we have here. So in this particular case, we see this as an indicator of this link the person has with this specific Holocene or this specific country or nation. And the person feels motivated to do this. So I see it in a positive way. For example, we talked about marketing. For example, OIC, we have an activity of lectures. This is not our main focus. We have all this work to do, but the person is motivated to do, the person is available. This will be recorded. So this is something, a very important content available for people in 1 year or 10 years. Maybe somebody will access conscientiology through this lecture. And I see that this effort for this internationalization works on this sense. We have this process, we need to identify, everyone identify, to feel inside what you have to deal with, and to place yourself, to commit yourself with this task. This is a very good example to think. For example, the person is going to talk in German, can be in French or Japanese, but the person talking into this foreign language, the person gets in touch, connected with this form, holotosemic form. And the person places him or herself in a different way, and this expands. And this is also an element for self-research, for CEAEC self-research. I remember something now. We are writing a dictionary of consciential therapy. When we started it, we thought, well, let's write it in English and Spanish, because in practice, I think the mega focus should be English, because it's an international language. The other languages also are important, but strategically, if we have to choose one language, it should be English to reach more people. And what happened was, well, there was somebody interested in German language and offered to translate. So we had to include the German. And another one came later and said, well, French is very important. Well, okay, let's include French. As long as you are able to do it, it's okay. So you see, we are working with a dictionary, which is multi-language. We have Portuguese plus 4 other languages. And what was the basis for this? The motivation of everyone sustaining this process. Because of this link, the person feels motivated and goes ahead, sustain this activity, and she likes it, she makes it, she's able to do it. This is something from the past. I think this is very important, this identification with the topic. So Diane and Jacqueline and then Sergio, and after Sergio, we will return to Diane for the questions. Well, this question about the roots, yes, we as intermissivists, we will have common roots. But if we think about the people dealing with translations, maybe we should consider certain tendencies. And Max gave some examples of these tendencies of thromomania and people having facilities with different languages. And this is not just from this life. And we can think about people dealing with translations in consecutive lives. This is not the first time they are doing it. So within this universe, we can see this liberty, freedom, and now we are recomposing. So along the time, we see some traits inside the person, and sometimes these traits have been dequalified in the past. For example, the aspect of traveling and the courage to travel to other places. I think we still have this, but now we want to help. We want to assist using our traits in a more cosmetical and existential manner. I think there are some aspects, for example, everyone outside of Brazil has something to do with an international praxis, people living abroad. And there are some factors people have mentioned before. I think about praxis. I think that's it regarding this question. So, Sergio, I just want to comment very briefly about the CEAEC roots from this group. Probably we have been in past times working in a very similar way, especially regarding the written translation. We can think about religion. Most books from the monkeys, from the monasteries, they have been involved with translations. And I can give one concrete example. 90% of what I translate is into English. And I have no formal qualification for English translation. So I have this concrete example. This has to do with these innate ideas. We have identified also our group with some Arabic aspects or Arabic culture, about Toledo in Spain. And when we started working here at the Tertuliarium, we perceived this connection with the Arabic world. So we see two groups interacting. So those traveling and those who are more intellectual. So we can have people have the two aspects. So it's important to analyze the traits. If you go more to this translation, but fixed in one place, or if you travel around the world. And maybe you can even make translations. So these are specialists within one activity. So Jacqueline. Yes, well, for example, in the past, there were some places where people got gathered together from different cultures. I think these were places with this focus of different languages, different cultures, and the other aspect would be the traveling. So in this aspect about the origin of the people linked to the internationalization, I want to bring something about trauma. I always had difficulties with the Spanish language. When we had work at IIPC, a program to support teaching, we gave classes in English, and we had also class in Spanish. It was a multicultural project. And we had a class from Maru Balona given in Spanish. And English for me was very easy, but in Spanish, not. And we had a group dynamics in Spanish, and I remember it very clearly. When I started talking in Spanish, language in a different way. So I think people linked to the international or internationalization should consider what Diane mentioned about recomposition and roots. Otherwise, you will get stuck. Like Max mentioned about German language. So why do you like German language? Maybe the person has a strong trait on this direction. I know, for example, I like very much English, but I did not give up studying Spanish. So we have the first language, which is the mother tongue, and then the second, and the third, and the fourth. But we should be lucid for this process because it involves our past and some traumas, and maybe the person will need assistance and consciential therapy. And of course, predisposition. The person should be open to this. So I just want to reinforce this condition. And we talked about trauma. I think it's important to consider this. Otherwise, we make things we like much bigger than the other things. So it's important to analyze our tastes and our preferences. And Eduardo is talking about this pensata about the gel dissidents. He's talking about the ability or capacity of people overcoming traumas. Well, I remind myself now another variable. I was thinking about the German language in OIC. We have actually some volunteers who lived in Germany, and they like it very much. They like everything from Germany. And you, for example, think about psychoanalysis, and you see the roots in this German context. And you think, well, this might be related to this evolutionary group. So this is one step forward. So now, before it was psychoanalysis, and now it's consciential therapy. I don't know if you remember the time we have itinerances from OIC. OIC has been in Spain, in USA, and Portugal. So we had these events and participation from OIC. And we had also an event in Germany. Well, you see, this is one group from one CI. We can consider other groups from other CIs having these links. Well, maybe these are the roots for one specialty. Well, what I want to say is that this kind of events, the ones Virginia mentioned in her verbatim, they change things in the world. So we have the next event from Apex in 2022, And we will talk about this later before we finish. Well, we have several comments and congratulations and thanks and for this Mentalsomatic Circle. But I want to bring one question from Marcus Mazzini. He's direct this question to Virginia and Jacqueline. Can you mention one strong trait from the Brazilian culture favoring the internationalization and also a weak trait and absent trait making it difficult? Well, respecting the Brazilian culture, let's talk about it. Every culture has their weak traits and absent traits. So I think in the case of Brazilian culture, I see the flexibility. It's really amazing how some movements from conscientiology this flexibility favors a lot internationalization of conscientiology. And these are the gains I have for recycling, coming from this movement to live in Brazil. And weak trait, I would say the lack of organization. We spend a lot of time just organizing things. So if people would get more well organized, things would get better written. But this is part of the work. And absent trait. Well, I actually mentioned an absent trait, the lack of organization. And in terms of weak trait, regarding internationalization, I would say bureaucracy and difficulties to do things and blocking the movements and difficulty in our work. But the Brazilians should know it better. There is another thing. I see a victimization. Brazilian culture tends to victimize people, and I think this has to do with self-esteem and sometimes devaluation of themselves, and to search for something outside Brazil, and to have this is what we call in Brazil tupiniquim culture, and this is very common. No culture is better than another. I'm Spanish and I value all cultures. I see that Argentina is another culture, Arabic culture is another one, and some people value this a lot when I say that I'm Spanish. They think, well, this is how nice it is to be born in an European country. And sometimes I benefit from some aspects cosmoethically, but sometimes I feel the cultures are the same. For example, somebody from Paraguay has less value than from another country. This doesn't make any sense. So since I was a child, this did not make sense for me. So this is a cultural aspect about respecting our own culture, recognizing our strong traits and our weak traits.
I think when I arrived in Brazil, one thing I saw a strong trait immediately. It was the openness of the culture. It's more open than Australia, for instance. It's more tolerant. People are more open. They listen, different point of views. I think this is very positive. And this thing of extroversion as well. People, they are more open and they want more than other people. They interact, they want to, I know there are some different based on region, but overall, I see that in the average, I think people really like to know more about people. It's very interesting for you to say this because you come from a new country as ours. It's a very modern country now. It's a new country, and still you see this difference. It's very interesting. And I think this is this heritage of England in Australia that's influenced this. Even though people are friendly, they are more reserved, more introspective. I see less in here. In Brazil, especially more open. So maybe they have influence of Africans or Portuguese. And so it's very interesting. In relation to the truffle, I put something about accommodation. So not accepting what is around now the government, and so people accommodate with the situations. And we create some, I think it's I'm not sure if it's we trade, it's a lack of people do not have they do not have self-criticism. The Brazilians do not have those self-criticism about themselves. More superstitions, lots of superstition in the culture. People less critical about things. That's my impression. Okay, Max, do you want to talk? I think one is the difficult, it's Brazilian people, they are basically monoglots. That's the most difficult aspects in Brazil, I think, because it's basically monoglot. In this point, it's the ignorance of education we do not have. They difficult a lot. I agree. There is not interest or infrastructure of for us to learn other language. But Max, it's very interesting this to listen the foreigners, to listen them, to talk about the culture. And I agree with many of the points they are talking about. We do have 5 minutes, and we have some messages that Virginia needs to give to you, and then we see how long gonna take. Okay, if I forget something, you guys help me. First, thank you to everyone, to the opportunity to be here with you guys. It was really good. We would like to give some data in relation to the number of publications. Do you know that we're gonna start the International Week We start at 20th August. We're gonna have some release of books in English, Spanish, and Romanian. So we have 16 books in English, and we're gonna release them in Friday. And we're gonna have in Spanish will be 6 books, and we're gonna release 2 in Romanian. So, and then we do have the 2 glossary in English and in English and in Spanish. We do have 16 books in English, and they will be released. So what else? We would like to invite everyone to the activities we're gonna have. Continuous. What else? Besides that, we have the 20th. We invite you for the beginning of the International Week. It's going to be from 20th to 27th of August. You can take part of many activities. Either way, if you are any culture and nationality, we invite you. We're going to have a simultaneous translation, the English to Portuguese, English to Spanish, and we're gonna have, we are not gonna let anybody out. So just come, we're gonna debate ideas, and 29th, we're gonna have a discussion about the internationalization. And today, this afternoon, we're gonna editors, we're gonna have a live about the translation of books in Spanish. And then tomorrow we're going to have a super tertulia with Jeffrey Lloyd talking about internationalization of conscientiology. So we have a really big agenda for the activities internationally. We have the existential balance in 2022 in German. So we talked a lot about German. And we do have other ideas that we want to do things in other countries. But we do have many projects for work in another country when we finish the pandemic, and we're gonna start to do more itinerance and travel to other places. And it's very important, this interaction with other countries and the cultures. So we invite you guys to take part, invite you to make part of this project. Without you guys, we can't do it. I just want to, a last question. Do you have a number of people international that we gave the integrated activity? Last year, we had 618 people, which represented 18% of the total of participants. And this year, we had the participation of 20 natives from 10 countries. This is for 2021. But that's what we are saying. Independently of the number, the most important thing, it's just we are just invest consistently for the work that is building up now for the future as well. It's an effect we are having, and we are seeing people coming from different parts of the world, and we are open to everyone. People in Africa that's coming from different areas, and and the most important thing is to keep the openness and welcoming anyone that's coming and keep going with the work. Because yes, we do know that lots of people are waiting for us to reach, and intermissivists that are reborn around the world and we think we can agree on that people are having people reborn around the world, and this movement of internationalization of consciousness will carry on now with the pandemic in this moment, and we want to have this opportunity to advance in the work now, as you saw the work we are doing. We have a CIP that is having course, IIPC is having courses in Spanish with the support of Argentina. They are giving courses in English as well. The Reurbanization Project. There are many projects some projects we need to say no. And there are many other things around that people are developing. And if you have a field with this project, just contact with ICCC, and we do have many work to do, and not many hands to do it. So come with us. Okay, so we're gonna work together. Okay, we thank everyone, the participation. We are thanks for the participation of ICCC, our spectators. We had 439 access, and so we see you guys next week.